Hello guys, so this is the Fantasy Surfer picks video for J-Bay. This is part one. We're too far at the moment to look at what the surf's going to be like, so I'm not going to finalise what my team will be. The purpose of this video is going to be give you guys some rundown on the break, the surfers that generally perform well there, and what I think a dream team would be. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be all selectable, whether that's World Surf League in the right brackets to choose all 8 of these guys, or whether that is on the Surfer Mag site in the right values to get it under your 50 grand price cap. But this is the dream team. Check back soon for the final team that I choose. You can be guided by that. Every little bit of insight with Fantasy Surfer I think helps. If you want to be notified when that comes out for free, please press subscribe to this channel and you'll be notified when that, along with any of my other videos, come out. As anybody who's a regular watcher of the World Surf League events will know, this is the event where Mick Fanning had an incident last year. You probably don't even have to be familiar with the World Surf League events to know that. You probably had to be asleep under a rock not to have heard that. I promise not to dwell on that too much in this video, simply because as horrible and as shocking as it was to watch, because the whole world piggybacked on it, I've heard about it quite a lot now. I'm not sure about anyone else. I'm sure as well because of the lulls between swell, we're going to hear about it time after time for the next couple of weeks through the event waiting period. So not to detract from how horrible it must have been, I really wish Mick the best with this event and hope it doesn't play on his mind too much. I will mention it no more in this video. So let's first look at the wave. The wave itself is made up of many different sections. Storm Rider / Magic Seaweeds comprise of 10 different spots. I'm sure depending on which local you speak to or which surfer you speak to, they may say it's got more or less, depending on what they define as the different spots. The 10 different spots run across 1 to 1.5 kilometres. The 10 spots identified by Storm Rider / Magic Seaweed are kitchen windows, magnet tubes, boneyards, super tubes, impossibles, salad balls, coins, tubes, the point, and finally albatross. I'm just going to deal with some of the main ones, as I say. Right at the top of the point is boneyards. It's a heavy, fast-breaking wave. Super tubes is probably the most surfed wave in the event. It's not as heavy as boneyards, making it much more surfable, making it more accommodating for barrels, as the name suggests, but also accommodating turns too. Next up, you've got the point right at the end of the wave. It's a sloppier wave which doesn't really offer anything for barrels, but if someone's surfed a good wave right through super tubes, right down to the point, you'll normally see them trying to rack up final scores with big turns. The most important of the 5 judging criteria for the whole of the J-Bay event, as with most point breaks, is speed, power and flow. If a surfer can take off at the point, surf really strong and fast all the way down, they're going to score highly. Guys who perform well at Bells Beach, also generally at J-Bay, they're quite different style point breaks, but a point break in a sense is a point break that the guys who have the speed to get through the sections generally end up doing quite well. Although there are good points on offer for barrels, it's not like Fiji where there's significantly more points on offer for a good barrel. J-Bay, they will score turns very well, and you're looking at a combination of manoeuvres. It's not just one quick barrel, a turn and off the back. They're looking for someone who can link up a load of turns and multiple barrels potentially down the line. The first thing I do before making these videos, and even before I made the videos with picking my team, was look who I think would stereotypically be a good performer there in that type of wave and see how many of them I can get into my team for the prices they're on. The next thing I do is look at the round 1 heat draw, see firstly how few clashes I can get, and secondly who they're up against. Is it someone who's capable of an upset basically? I did this for the J-Bay event, and unfortunately for picking a Fantasy Surfer team, but what's going to be great for actually watching the event is there are loads of guys I think in Heat 1 capable of a massive upset. So I'm talking about Mick and Connor in Heat 1, Wilco and a wildcard in Heat 6. Obviously the wildcards at J-Bay, so much more familiar with the wave. Wilco is so hot at J-Bay, but against the wildcard, until we know who it is, he could be upset in round 1. I think Toledo and Slater, as good as Slater is on his right hand point breaks, Toledo has so much speed, especially if the surf's small. I think we could see an upset. Smith and Dantes in Heat 9. Dantes just so powerful in these types of waves, but again Jordy Smith equally as powerful. Very different styles, but that clash of styles could make it harder for the judges and more likely for an upset. Heat 10, another Ibelli, Parco and Flores. Parco would be my favourite on paper, but Ibelli and Flores, brilliant surfers as well, and perfectly capable of upsetting Parco. And last but not least, Wilson and Young in Heat 11. I think another heat to watch. Where if I was forced to, I'd probably put my money on Julian. Nat Young on his backhand is so powerful and should never be written off. As I mentioned at the start of this video, these 8 surfers are not my final picks. I will review that again nearer the event, once we've got an idea of what the surf's going to be like. So this pick of 8 is really based on who I generally expect to do well there if the surf is sort of averagely good for J-Bay. It's based largely on previous results and current form. The first thing to note is there isn't a particularly really diverse list of winners over the last 10 years. And of the winners over the last 10 years, there's only 4.5 of them left on tour. The half obviously being for Julian and Mick, where they had the draw heat. They have all been factored into my list. Let's dive straight into it. Mick's always been dominant in J-Bay. He's just got a style which suits it to the ground. His turns are so powerful, silky smooth at the same time, and he just never falls, which is perfect for putting a heat together at J-Bay. He last won in 2014, and he was also the joint winner in 2015 with Julian Wilson after the incident. How that will play in his mind, nobody knows. I've got to say, I still think Mick will be a good bet. He's such a good competitive surfer, and he can just put things behind him that other guys couldn't dream of forgetting about. So I think he'll manage to put it behind him quite well. Next up, Kelly Slater. As with any wave on tour, I think experience counts so much. There's loads of rookies on tour at the moment who have been dominating, but if we get some sizable swell through at J-Bay, which is quite likely, I think Kelly's going to be up there. The only thing that put me off picking Kelly was that he's not won J-Bay since 2008, which is quite a long time ago now. However, the performance he put on at Fiji really showed he's back in it for this year, and he has to pull out a few more performances, or he could quite easily end up dropping off the tour this year if he goes back to his run of 25th. Although he hasn't won since 2008, he did semi-final in 2015 and was knocked out early in round 3 by Jonny Wilkinson in 2014, but it was a year when Wilco was an absolute roll. It's not like he was knocked out by somebody who wasn't surfing well. Next up, Parkinson, as I touched on before, another of the guys who just suits this place down to the ground. He's like Mick in terms of his turns and his style just suited so perfectly. That criteria I talked about, speed, power and flow, there's nobody on tour in my eyes that can tick that box so well. He's so stylish, makes everything look so easy, which can sometimes go to his detriment, and he's not had the best year so far by Joel's standards. In the same way as Kelly, he needs to start putting in performances now, and he's probably going to place quite well. As for previous results, he last won in 2009, not too dissimilar to Kelly in that he hasn't won for a while. He was runner-up in 2014 though, and was taken out early in 2015 by Wiggly Dantes. Being taken out by Wiggly Dantes in round 3 doesn't sound great on paper, but Wiggly is a guy who serves his place so well and is definitely an outsider pick. Jordy Smith has previously had consecutive wins at J-Bay. He's a local from South Africa and won the event in 2010 and 2011. He has, however, had round 2 exits in the last 2 years. I personally think, though, that he will be looking to rectify that. I think surfing at home is one of those things that can sometimes be so much pressure on someone to do well, especially after they've won the event 2 years in a row before. You'd like to think the stress from that's probably gone now and the expectation to win, and with that expectation maybe being lessened, hopefully Jordy can pull a result out of the back. Next up, Julian Wilson. I think I finally clicked Julian in Fantasy Surfer. That the events I'd expect him to do well in, beach breaks because of his airs and things like that, shore breaks, Brazil, France, Portugal, he doesn't seem to do that well in them all the time, or he's at least more sporadic anyway. He seems to do better in point break waves. He seems to be able to go sort of safety surf in a sense and just rely on turns, which he just seems to score better at. So Julian's probably going to be making my team, I think. He obviously came joint winner with Mick last year in the final. Wherever he'd have won that heat had the incident not have happened, who knows, but he certainly stood a good chance to put a good heat to Mick. He was on fire last year. It wasn't a coincidence that he got to the final, and I expect him to put a good showing this year too. John Florence has already proved that he's an absolute machine this year, with B. Durbridge behind him, giving him the competitive savvy, and focusing solely on competitive surfing rather than trying to film movies, do photo shoots, etc. He's one to watch at every event for the rest of the year, probably in my eyes. He's another of the guys that, although you have him down in your head for all this innovative aerials and things like that, he has so much style and power that he can really put in good results at point breaks too, and I expect him to put in a good showing at J-Bay. He is, however, a bit of an unknown as far as previous results go. 2014 he exited in round 3, which is admittedly pretty poor. 2015 he was injured, so we have no result for then. Just looking at his form up until this event so far, I do expect him to perform quite well. Next up, I've got Jonny Wilkinson down. He's still in the yellow jersey. I don't think anybody, or very few people, would have predicted this year. Although I put him in my team at the start of the year expecting him to be better this year, I didn't expect him to be as good as he has been. I think he's taken the surf world by surprise, to be quite frank, and good on him. Everyone loves him and it's great to see him performing well. J-Bay traditionally is an event he's performed well at in the past. Finishing third last year, he's so good at exploiting his backhand. He's one of the best backhand surfers in the world, and J-Bay is just the perfect canvas for him to show that off, basically. He proved he's got a good form there by finishing third in 2014. In 2015 he did exit early in round 3 to Gabriel Medina, but Gabriel Medina put in a 19.07 heat, and there's few guys and few occasions when you get somebody putting a heat score like that the other guy manages to beat them, especially so early in an event. Talking of Gabriel Medina, he rounds off my picks. Another guy who just knows how to exploit the judges using his backhand on a wave that just lends itself perfectly to that style of surfing, to throw spray miles in the air. He's also got a super consistent recent run of form there, finishing in the quarterfinals in 2014 and 2015. I do have some other wildcards / other picks. I try and keep my general picks to 8. I've got 2 extra guys that I want to talk about this time, and it's almost what makes J-Bay so hard, that there are a lot of guys that perform well there, but there are so many guys that can perform well there that even the best guys there end up getting knocked out quite early soon, so it is quite a hard event to pick for. The first guy I want to speak about is Adriano de Souza. Coming from Brazil, you generally put him down as a beach break surfer, but look at his actual results. He's got impeccable results at Bells Beach, which is another right hand point break. Looking at J-Bay in the last 2 years, he's another guy who's finished in the quarters both times. Really consistent there, and definitely someone you should consider putting in your team. The next guy, somebody who doesn't have any competitive form there to judge himself off, but another person who just has a reputation for being amazing in right hand point breaks. Connor Coffin, obviously growing up and surfing Rincon, a lot of his footage coming out of there. There is so much if you want to YouTube him. I'll try and put a decent video in the link below of him surfing some right hand point breaks. I don't think I have to say any more about it, just watch the video and you'll be sold on why he should definitely be at least considered for your team. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope this video helped in trying to finalise your fantasy surfer team. As I say, this is part 1. Part 2 I will put up nearer the event, which will include a surf forecast for the waiting period with charts from Magic Seaweed and my picks based on that. If you want to see that video first, please press subscribe. If this video has been helpful to you, please press like, and if you've got any questions or comments of your own, please pop them in the comments below. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Cheers. Been helpful if you've been shut up. If this video has been helpful to you